Hey, welcome to Lee Reads. I'm Lee, and I started this channel because I love reading books and I love talking to other people about the books that I read and hearing what they thought about the books that I read, but a lot of my friends and family are not keeping up with me, and so I needed to go find my people who are reading these books so that I can talk to these people about these books, because I just want to talk to more people about books. So let's get started. This is my top 10 books from 2025. I read 57 books in 2025. My goal was to read the same amount as last year or more, and I did read more than last year, so I feel good about that. And secretly I thought it would be like kind of fun to read 52 books in the year, and I got to 57. These are my top 10. They're not in perfect order because I kind of struggled to like give things a category or an order, but I will go from like least favorite to most favorite. So let's get started. Book number 10, I have a copy, but I gave it to my friend, so I don't have it anymore. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I got this book as a Patreon perk. I'm part of a Patreon that does like a book group, and I read it kind of late in the year, and it just like bowled me over. It was very unexpected. It's like a post-apocalyptic story, but it, as the back says, it like crosses genres. It's doing a lot, and it was written in the 90s, only got one printing, and then has recently been reprinted, so I think it's like having a resurgence right now. And it was just like very beautiful. It was very compassionate. You think it's gonna be like all horror because it's this post-apocalyptic thing, but then it ends up being like kind of beautiful and like makes you feel like human nature is kind of beautiful, which was really good. So just like a atmospheric, very like turquoise kind of vibe of book. Highly recommend. Book number 9 from 2025 is The Montessori Baby by Simone, Davies, and another person putting it on the screen. I read this book, The Montessori Baby, and the one that comes after it, The Montessori Toddler. I really liked both of them. This one was the one I liked better because they do get a little bit repetitive within the book, because it's like supposed to be a manual for busy parents, so I understand, but the toddler one was like a little bit repetitive of the baby one. Both really useful. I will probably end up buying these books if I end up having the baby and the toddler. I loved the philosophy, the end of it, where they talk about how like raising our children differently is the only way that we can create world peace. Was just like, it really hit me. And this idea of like giving autonomy to your children, letting them be their own person from the earliest years, and then like giving them all the possibility to, you know, like meet their own needs and be their own person, and to like really respect them from day one, I thought was beautiful. It hit me in the feels and also was very like real life useful, I think. I don't want any feedback. I don't want any parenting advice because I don't have children, so I liked that book. I enjoyed it. Book number 8, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, Lori Gottlieb. Got this from the library, and it's back at the library now. It was just a very sweet book. It's about a therapist, and she gets her own therapist, and so it's kind of like her journey of becoming more confident as a therapist at the same time that she's like dealing with her own internal stuff. The therapist that she has in the book is very cute, and the clients that she has are really cute. She has like one client who's like, you think he's an evil guy, and then you find out he's got a soft heart, and also one that's like a mom whose kids are estranged from her, like they're all adults, and she just like beautifully owns how like all the mistakes that she made, and also that she's like this beautiful person. And I think it does a good job of like seeing all the sides of that, and just again very compassionate. I did read this during final season last May, which I do think during finals I love to procrastinate by reading, and so it's possible that I liked it more because I was like using it to procrastinate, but what can I say? I liked it. Book number 7, I own this copy of this book still, Archive by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. This was a Christmas gift from my sister. She knew that I would want a used copy, so she got it off of Thrift Books. Thank you. This is a book of poetry, super impactful. I'm not usually like that big of a poetry person, and the type of poetry that it is like very creative. It's not like rhymed couplets by any means, but very like association, and just the way that it tells a story is so complex, and yet like draws the picture for you so clearly. It took me like most of the year to read this book. I think I finished it in October and I got it for Christmas last year, but it is the kind of book that you can like pick up and put down and pick up and put down. I'm going to take the liberty of reading you one of my favorite passages from this book. It's about also post-apocalyptic, remembering who we are after the end of time, if you will. Okay. There was a certain numbness they cultivated without knowing it, not caring calcified in places they wouldn't have expected. An impulse they had allowed to flourish in order to protect themselves from the reckless energy of millions that surrounded them day in, day out. It began to build its own anthills against their spirits, and just like the city had routes and passageways variously under construction, their bodies became complicated networks of evasion. Eventually, they didn't know how they felt. These are the things they tried in order to unblock the capillaries of being. They tried drugs, prescribed and unprescribed, found and given, over the counter and over the top. Mostly this exacerbated the distance. They tried trips to mountains, oceans, lakes, canyons, and other sites advertised as breathtaking. The effects were not lasting. They tried yoga, Pilates, hot yoga, Zumba, jogging, and other fitness watch trackable activities. While ability to endure feelinglessness increased, capacity to feel stayed negligible. That's so real. They tried the best food: raw, organic, fresh, local, pressed, vegan, macrobiotic, antioxidant, clean. It was as if the not feeling echoed in spaces cleared of fatty solids. Some called it emptiness. They tried the best food: imported, fusion, decadent, dripping, buttery, nostalgic, exquisite, exquisite. It layered their organs. The lack of feeling bounced softly like if their lives were padded rooms populated by exhausted, hazy strangers, themselves. Book number 6, Perfect Victims by Muhammad al-Kurd. This book, I bought it and then I gave my copy to my sister, so good trade. I love this book so much. It uses lots of different types of writing. There's like poetry, songs, sayings, first person, third person, obviously prose. It's very just beautifully constructed. Like, it's a beautiful expression of this like thing that needed to be communicated across as quickly as possible, because it's about the way that the West and even many like allies of Palestinians expect Palestinians to be these like blameless, perfect victims, even preferring to listen to Palestinians who are children over Palestinians who are adults. And essentially the way that Palestinian, like the roles that they're allowed to play are just constricted and constricted and constricted until people can find any excuse why like they don't deserve the same rights that every human deserves. And so it's this like message that absolutely needed to be communicated. This book was written like in the last 18 months after the genocide in Gaza had begun and was super powerful, just really good reminder, good medicine. And I loved that there were some sections of it that were in Arabic, some like expressions and stuff that he doesn't translate. Love a like multimedia, multi-style, multi-language book. A+. Book number 5, Parable of the Talents, Octavia Butler. I read both this one and Parable of the Sower, which is like the first book in the 2-book series this year. I loved them both. I chose this one for the top 10 because the first book is like this really gripping, beautiful, exciting story. I loved the story and it was amazing. The second book is also a really good story, but the second book, like, without giving you spoilers, the second book kind of shows us the cracks in the story of the first book, and I think for me it made me really reckon with, you can get what you want and still have to leave some things behind. Like, you can have even like a really powerful impact and create something huge and beautiful and significant, like the thing that you wanted to create, and you will still have loss along the way and grief along the way and things along the way that you can't control. It also was like a great exploration of mothers and children and how the children can only ever see the mothers from their own child's perspective, no matter like how much the mothers see themselves as, you know, a whole person. And so I loved getting to see through 2 different perspectives. Just like absolutely gorgeous. Apparently a lot of like post-apocalyptic stuff got into my top 10 this year. What can I say? I love the realistic world that she paints. Obviously very scary realistic world that she paints, but amazing and actually great alongside a lot of the other things that got me excited this year. Book number 4, My Year of Rest and Relaxation, Otessa Moshfegh. I know this book was popular like 2 or 3 years ago. I read it this year. I listened to the audiobook and I thought the audiobook was really good. I can't even explain why I love this book so much. I have kind of also gone through a year of rest and relaxation. It wasn't like hers exactly, but I have to say some aspects of it were somewhat similar. I did also be like, I'm gonna take a year to just disappear from society. And I did do that. And actually, I believe that her year of rest and relaxation, disappearing from society, was healing for her. My one was healing for me. And honestly, similar in some ways, although I certainly don't want to claim like being too similar to this character. Then again, maybe I am very similar to this character and that's why it hit me and I just like don't want to admit it. It was just very charming. I liked that like you sort of know what the ending is that you're building toward the whole time, but then the ending kind of surprises you and is like way more exciting than you thought. Like one of my worst things in books is when like you love the story that they're building up and then it doesn't pay off in the end. I felt like the ending of this book truly paid off. Like it just kept building and building throughout the entire thing. A+, love this book. Book number 3, What My Bones Know. Kind of funny in the context of My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Sort of similar stories. One is fiction, one is nonfiction. Here's the book for you. I really liked the author's voice. I listened to this as an audiobook. It really worked. Similarly, I've had a similar journey to Stephanie Fu of like trying to, you know, going on a mental health journey, basically trying everything and seeing, like throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. I really enjoyed the way that she told the story. It was so complete, so complex. You really get a sense of her as a person, and it's a really hopeful story. So I appreciated that we get a hopeful story, and even that she like in the end finds sort of like the right therapist that is the person that can take her past where she's gone before. I kind of found that person, and then that story also had a really complex end, and so this book made me think about that and sort of come back to that sense of like, can I find the person who's gonna fix me? And the answer is like kind of yes, kind of no. I love it. Book number 9, I don't know if it's fair to put this as my second favorite book of the year. I'm kind of second guessing this ranking, but it's too late. Gentrification of the Mind by Sarah Schulman. Read 2 books by her this year. I really liked them both. This one was a little bit like weirder and more creative, and so I really appreciated that about it. She talks about the way that the AIDS crisis contributed to literal gentrification in New York City, that people would die and their apartments would get sold for like way more than the previous tenant had been paying. So the literal gentrification of the city happened with the AIDS crisis, or like as a result of the AIDS crisis. But she also talks about gentrification of the mind, this idea that we all are no longer able to be uncomfortable, no longer able to sort of work with people who are different than us, or to even work in a way of having solidarity with each other. We all have sort of become like corporate clients. It's interesting, she describes the her building in New York City where she's lived for like 30 or 40 years, and that the old neighbors, like the old guard that she's lived with this whole time, have these like working class jobs, and that they have formed a tenants union. They've done a rent strike. They've gotten lots of success in their solidarity as tenants, and that the new tenants who have moved in since the AIDS crisis are not from New York City, they're like transplants from other places, and B, these are people who like, it's kind of like they're temporarily embarrassed millionaires, but people who don't see that they should like have any beef with the landlord. So when she tries to talk to them about like tenant organizing, these new neighbors are like, why would I do that? I'll just pay to fix my own dishwasher, I guess. And so this idea that like the new generation in New York City doesn't know that they deserve to fight for their rights, because of course these tenants are getting taken advantage of too, but they're just don't see themselves as like someone who would resist that. I loved her descriptions of ACT UP and like the direct action that came out of the AIDS crisis, and just like this example of these really cool activist projects that they did. Amazing. And I also love that like at least one chapter of all of her books is basically her like personal grievances about the publishing industry and the theater industry, which I understand are not personal grievances, because the point is that no lesbian authors get published, or that if lesbian authors get published, they have to not have lesbian content. So I get that it's not just personal, but I love Sarah Schulman. She's a strong flavor, and I like that flavor. Book number 1 of the entire year also came from my same Patreon perk. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for suggesting this book. Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I loved this book. I feel like half the books on this list, I'm like, oh, it's so compassionate, but that book was so compassionate. It tells the story of like horrible, horrible events in a person's life, and then like allows that person to keep their soul, keep their like true nature, and be sort of saved by all these different community members in small ways. I think those stories of like looking back through the very worst times, and then you see the people that were there catching you, holding you, helping you, supporting you. I kind of love those stories. And so this was similar to that, like every single bad thing happens, and yet this person just, I don't even want to say he rises above, because he's very much like in the muck. Like it's not that he sort of like he escapes, but he escapes not unscathed. And so, okay, let me go back. I loved how she represents this rural part of America where people are like living off the land, free to do what they want with their own land. There's so much of a sense of like autonomy, community, interdependence in this community that she paints, even though it gets ravaged by the opioid crisis and actually many other things before that, having to do with like the coal industry and all these negative health effects and negative economic outcomes of basically how this land has been totally taken advantage of. And so the climax of the story is not like, oh, this place is bad, this place did bad things to our narrator, and so he has to escape and like go to the big city in order to be successful. Yes, he does go to the big city, but it's actually so clear from the book how much love and kinship and just how much value there is to living closer to the land. And so I love that this was like positive rural representation, as someone who's very like excited about gardening, being in communication, being in community with the earth. I love that we like saw how much the earth was a character in the story, and even like an attachment figure for the narrator. And I just like love the narrator's voice. I would follow him anywhere. So those are my top 10. Please, if you read any of these books, if you agree with me, disagree with me, have your own take, I would literally love it if you would comment, tell me what you thought about the book, tell me what you thought about my take on the book, tell me if this book has been on your reading list forever. Take this as a sign to read it in 2026. After you read it, come back here and tell me about the book and how it went. I would love to talk about it with you. And yeah, let's keep reading.